happy to be just partnering with people at Corewell Health and Blue Cross Blue Shield and so many other organizations, the Steve and Amy Van Andel Corporation. And then we've got in the foundation, we've got people from Grand Valley, the Hauenstein Center. All of you have helped make today possible. Let's give all of them a hand. And as I look at these tables to my left, we've also got some trustees of the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Foundation. We couldn't do our work without you all. There's Chairman Mike Generano, your wife Sue is with you. Thank you so much, Mike. We also have Tina Fries-Decker at Corewell, and we have Maria Chimatilli from Grand Valley. Thank you all for all the good work you do with the foundation. We have Ford family members here. Of course, Susan Ford is here with us, and we also have Greg Ford and Carla. I'm not sure where you are. I can't. Oh, right there in front of me. Very good. So we always appreciate the Ford's participation in our events. We couldn't do this without your all's enthusiastic support for the work we do. And we also have so many representatives with us here. We have our Congresswoman Hillary Skolton here at table 6. Thank you so much for being part of the festivities today. And we have Winnie Brinks, Majority Leader Brinks, and a number of the Grand Rapids delegation who are here. And we thank all of you for serving and for being here. You know, that leads me to my next point, public service. If you think of public service in Grand Rapids, you're thinking of Gerald R. Ford, aren't you? And Betty Ford. They knew what public service was about, and we are so proud to be able to carry on the legacy of the Fords. And that's what we do at the foundation and at the library and the museum. This foundation has been so much fun because we've gotten to know all the wonderful things Betty Ford that I did not realize beforehand. So I just looked up a survey of all the first ladies in the last 60 years. And I was delighted to see that Betty Ford comes in #1 first lady in the past 60 years. It's little wonder when you think of all of the women's lives she saved by telling her story, all the families she contributed to saving because she had the guts to allow an intervention. All of the women she made empowered to go into politics because of their interest in the ERA and basic fairness of American democracy. The list goes on, and those are the topics we're going to be exploring this afternoon. And I also, of course, whenever I mention Betty Ford, I can't help but mention Susan Ford Bales. Susan's a great partner of the foundation. She has been all along. Susan is the one. If you appreciate these luncheons, Susan and her mom were the architects of these luncheons. They started back in 2012. This is the 12th one. We had to skip a year with COVID, but this is the 12th one we've hosted. And Susan, if you like your gift at your table setting there, the stamp, that panel, Susan was the architect of that, working with the U.S. Post Office. It's always a delight and an honor to have Susan come back to Grand Rapids and join us. Please give her a warm welcome.
Welcome. What a nice group today. Lisa McCubbin-Hill, Anita McBride, our friends from Flair, Rachel Stiglo, Brooke Clement, your museum, foundation, colleagues, and trustees, Greg and Carla Ford, Joe and Donna Calvaruso, distinguished elected officials, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2024 First Ladies Luncheon. What an exciting day for all of us. Let me extend a very special thank you to our sponsors and the Foundation's generosity that we were able to conduct this luncheon each and every year. On behalf of Mom, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I've thought a lot about what to say and how best to introduce our extraordinary guest. How can I express the deep feelings that Mom and I would share about what it means to be honored by our guest in Mom's hometown? Ladies and gentlemen, it's not been an easy task. As I reflected on this task, my thoughts kept coming back to the great work that Mom and our guests each carried out for decades. History now allows us to see the bedrock connections between these two remarkable ladies. Each of them had their moment in time. Each of them had their moment to make a difference. So in short, they had one chance at forever. And oh my, ladies and gentlemen, did both of them make that moment count. There was a time when women had breast cancer and shame behind closed doors. There was a time when words of breast cancer would never be uttered publicly, and most certainly never by America's First Lady. And then, ladies and gentlemen, there was Betty. There was a time when the stigma of prescription drugs and alcohol addiction was as cynical as it was cruel. Most often, it was confused incorrectly with individual moral failure, and a failure caused solely by personal choice. And then, ladies and gentlemen, there was Betty. Now, I must admit that not all of Mom's examples are ones our guests should repeat. Lisa McCubbin Hill, and many of you will recall the now famous photograph of Mom taken by Mom and Dad's good friend, David Kitterly. David's photo is of Mom standing on the cabinet room table in her favorite dancer's pose. So now a bit of inside advice to our guests. The next time that you are in the cabinet room, you might simply want to touch it, not stand on the table. And then with a smile, remember your fellow First Lady, Betty. Today, the magnificent historical legacy that Mom created shines brightly. And it shines particularly brightly because of the wonderful works of our special guest. Just as Mom did, as being First Lady, our guest is a trailblazer. She has been a trailblazer in her many great works and in the examples that she set as a wife, mother, grandmother, role model, and First Lady. There was a time when First Ladies were expected to pick a small project and to stick with that project. No changes allowed. And ladies and gentlemen, then there was Jill. There was a time when women's health care policy and funding were kicked to the shadows of the OMB in congressional back rooms. And then, ladies and gentlemen, there was Jill. And there was a time when it would have been unthinkable for the First Lady to continue working outside the White House in her full-time career. And then, ladies and gentlemen, then there was Jill. A question that I am often asked is, what would Betty Ford think of our current First Lady? My answer yesterday, today, and tomorrow is like Mom, blunt and laser focused. Betty Ford would be our guest's most enthusiastic supporter, period. So therefore, on behalf of Mom, it is my high honor and personal joy to welcome to Mom's hometown a woman of boundless courage and compassion, a woman who shows all of us by word and deed how one person can lift up the lives of millions, and a woman who most certainly Betty Ford would be proud to call her friend. So ladies and gentlemen, the First Lady of the United States, Dr. Jill Biden. But also, let me welcome, because Dr. Biden has a medical issue, Dr. Carolyn Missouri, who will be presenting her remarks. So please welcome both ladies.
So, I woke up this morning feeling a little under the weather and without a voice. And I said to myself, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I said, well, what would Betty Ford do? So I got myself up and I got myself together. And as an American who really loved Betty Ford as our First Lady, I decided I wanted to come here and be with all of you. So Betty, I'm here for you. But I'm going to have to ask Carolyn, Missouri, to give my comments because I really don't think my voice would last through everything. So I'm sorry, but otherwise this would be the end. This has to be the end of my speech. So thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Biden. It's a privilege to be your voice today. Congresswoman Skolton, thank you for your warm welcome to your district. Leader Brinks, Joe and I, that's the president, are grateful for all you're doing in Michigan to make women's health a priority. Executive Director Whitney and the foundation staff, thank you for making this beautiful luncheon possible. Good afternoon. A love of life born on the banks of Whitefish Lake, splashing for hours with friends in its cool, clear water, the summer sun baking down. A heart shared at Mary Free Bed, organizing dance parties for children in wheelchairs and leg braces. Grit formed on Sunday shifts at Hulpersheimer's during the Great Depression, helping her family pay the bills, the same grit and grace that helped her twirl across the stage at Carnegie Hall. Mrs. Ford was extraordinary, and at her core, she was always Betty Bloomer from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Even as she soared to great heights, she was also grounded. Every woman could see a part of herself in Betty. And in her resilience and triumph, we found our own strength. If Betty can do it, I can do it, as you heard this morning. How many women and men owe their lives to following her example? From breast cancer to addiction, Betty's mark is lasting. What footprint do you want to leave on the White House? It's a question Betty grappled with, and I think each First Lady has in her time. We are only given a moment, as Susan said, a flash on the pages of history. There's no roadmap for how to write your chapter, no course you can take or book you can buy. There are only the legacies of the incredible women who came before you. And all you can do is try to meet your moment in your way with grace. Mrs. Ford did not waste a minute of her moment. The historian Richard Norton Smith once said, "Where women's health issues are concerned, American history is divided into two unequal periods, before Betty and after Betty." Today, I'm adding another chapter to the story of women's health after Betty. Even though we are half the population, women's health is understudied and research is underfunded. Too many studies have left women out, and too many of the medications, treatments, and medical textbooks are based on men and their bodies, and that information does not always apply to women. This has created gaps in our understanding of conditions that mostly affect women, only affect women, or affect women and men differently, leaving women seeking healthcare in a medical world largely designed for men. When you think about it, the problem becomes obvious. We all know it. We've all experienced it in one way or another. We've even become used to it. If you ask any woman in America about her health care, she probably has a story to tell. You know her. She's the woman who gets debilitating migraines but doesn't know why and can't find treatment options that work for her. She's the woman going through menopause who visits her doctor and leaves with more questions than answers. Even though half the country will go through menopause at some point in their lives, she's the woman whose heart attack isn't recognized because her symptoms don't look like a man's, even as heart disease is the leading cause of death among women. So many of us, and so many of the women in our lives, suffer from health conditions for which we simply don't have answers or solutions because we don't have the research. It doesn't have to be this way. We can fundamentally change how our nation approaches and funds women's health research. That's what the White House Initiative on Women's Health Research is all about. We launched the initiative in November, and since then we've made remarkable progress. Joe signed an executive order to make sure that when the government funds research, the work includes women from the beginning. We're pushing forward innovation that could be life-changing. We're ensuring that when we make discoveries, those ideas get to the women and families waiting for answers. And Joe is pushing Congress to make the biggest and boldest investment ever made in women's health. $12 billion so that women can finally get the answers we deserve. This is a big problem with deep roots, and we're not going to fix it overnight. But Betty has taught us lasting change isn't quick or easy. It's a daily practice requiring constant tending and sustained vigilance. Small steps each day that build a brighter tomorrow, where women leave doctors' offices with more answers than questions, where no woman ever has to say, "We're here again, it's all in your head," or "It's just stress," where women don't just survive, they lead long, healthy, and happy lives. Together, with Betty's fortitude and hope, we can make that tomorrow possible. Thank you.